Alofa, welcome everyone to another live digital kava session here on the Polynesian Eyes podcast. It's the first one of the year, Mr. Atearoa.
2025.
How's
Yeah.
2025 treating you?
Today, but the start of 2025 so far so good. Steadily, gradually, starting work back up this week, but next week probably um a little bit more into it. But so far so good. It rained a little bit today in South Auckland, and now it's
Looks like the
nice and
sun's out.
sunny. Yep, sun is out. So good day to do some laundry. Help my wife did some laundry and did some shopping today since it's our Saturday. But yeah, so far so good. How about you, Tua? How's your day going?
It's Friday, man. It's been a long week.
Mm,
Obviously, we had the holiday with I had worked Monday and Tuesday, and then Wednesday had it off for New Year's. And then
yeah.
Thursday, Friday, been some busy days, long meetings, but glad it is Friday. Excited for the weekend. I'm going to power through our podcast here. Oh, and Tongan Style says, Happy holidays, gents. Sio Tofa, Malo Alpito,
Hello,
T
Tommy Style.
Style. Good to see you. Happy New Year
Happy New Year.
to you. Oh, Yahweh. Water Bear says, Happy
Water
New Year,
Bears.
Stokowas.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year, Water
Happy
Bears.
New Year. For our official PR, Water Bears will give you a raise next year. Malo and our of Water Bears.
Malo.
Um, but yeah, excited for 2025. You know, it always feels like it's a new beginning. You know, hopefully get a
Yep.
fresh start. Excited to continue this effort. I was just sharing with Mr. Atearoa. We had our best month ever on the podcast was how we closed out
Mm,
2024. But so like yeah, on YouTube, on TikTok, and also on we don't really track Facebook. What's the other one? Just primarily YouTube
Spotify.
and TikTok.
Spotify.
Spotify, yes.
Yeah.
Spotify. So really 2024 ended with a bang
Yep.
in December. So appreciate everyone's support, all the shares, all the views, all the comments. It's been a great start to the podcast, starting year, you
Yes,
know.
sir.
So really excited for that. Anything else, kind of before we jump into our items here, Mussy? Just anything that's kind of sticking out, just like, hey, this might be something to kind of get addressed and get going. Oh, you know what? I have a question, and it's
What's up?
just because I've seen it a couple times on YouTube and also some social media. You know how Western Samoa became Samoa, but then they also moved the date line, right?
Yes.
Like
Yep.
so that I think it was for trading reasons
Yep.
for New Zealand and
With
Samoa.
Australia. Yep.
And is it now that Samoa is now the first to greet the day? Did they get closer to the date line than Tonga, or because I seen a couple times where that's some YouTubers and stuff are saying Samoa was the first to greet each new day, but you know how that's always been a Tongan
Tonga.
claim since we were young is where time
Ye-
begins and greets first ones to greet every day.
Yeah. No. So they moved it, but apparently it's still the same time. But I know Samoa does the daylight savings. So let's just have a quick look here. So Samoa time. So it's six. So it's the same time. It shares the same time with New Zealand, which is the same as Tonga at the moment. So, but I know they do daylight savings during New Zealand's time with the winter here in Samoa.
Mm.
So to match with New Zealand, but Tonga, so far from what I know, is they don't do daylight savings. It stays the same. So I don't know if
Mm.
you're. I mean, they're the same time as Tonga with the same day, so I guess they can both say it. They first one to
Mm,
meet the they,
okay.
but but seems like Tonga doesn't change the hour or the daylight. They don't have daylight savings. It's been the same since from what I remember. So Samoa has changed the day, but they still do daylight savings, but in a different season. So
Okay. Looks
yeah,
like
that's
Water Bears is
yeah.
throwing out Kiribati. I don't know if what's
Kitty,
Kiribati's time? Is they on the same time zone?
let's see, Kiribati, Kiribati. I would say they're more of the American time. Let's see here. So right now, no, it's yeah, it's American time in Kiribati. 5-9
Oh,
Saturday.
so you start your celebration in Tonga Samoa and end in Kiribati.
Kiribati. No, so it's the same day as us, but an hour difference.
Oh, okay, so still the same day. Okay.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right. T Style here says he made the correction here. Great last episode with Masi's travels and Xiaoxi Ilayu. Yes, I'm gonna try and get the final edits for Xiaoxi Ilayu's. It's gonna be two more, so it's gonna be a
yeah.
total of three episodes. I'm gonna try and release that this coming week, maybe even over the weekend if I don't get too distracted. Maybe I'll be able to release the final, the second episode of
Part
Xiaoxi
two.
Ilayu. So
Yeah.
that's pretty awesome. That was a great episode, and everybody's gonna love the next two parts too. It a lot
Mm,
of interesting things that we learn. May even mention it a little bit. Some of the things he mentions
mm-hmm.
from the first one that we released on a couple of these videos that we're going to look at later on in the program. But so Masi, here's a question from Tui. Who is Xiaoxi Ilayu? If you want to answer
Yeah.
that.
So Xiaoxi Ilayu, I think he did his doctorate from University of Massey here in New Zealand, and he's just a person that's fond on Polynesian history. He's kind of focused on. He's one of the few ones that's lived in different of the island states of the Polynesian states. Futuna, Uvea. He spent quite a few time there. Spent a
Mhm.
lot of time also in Ha'amoa, Polu, and Savai'i, especially. And also, he did a lot of his just studies on other island groups like in eastern Polynesia, just regarding on just trying to understand more of the the structure and the governance of Tonga.
Mhm.
That was kind of his main thing. So he said he had a difficult time. Um, he wanted more answers. I would say he wanted more answers on how Tongan society functioned, especially with the introduction of the Tui Ganubolu line, which is the third line, and just understanding on where that kind of structure came from. So that's kind of been his thing, and he's been around doing interviews, and that's how I came across him. I've heard his programs here in New Zealand, and also he was a suggestion from one of our viewers for us to try to reach out. And yeah, reached out to him, and he was happy to join us for podcast. So yeah, part two is gonna be excited for everyone. I know everyone is looking forward to it. But that's I don't know unless you have anything, Tua. Did I kind of miss
No,
that?
that's it.
Yashi
100%.
Ilayu?
Yeah, I
Mm,
mean, really enjoyed. Didn't know much about him. That's why
yeah.
we love our viewers and our listeners. You guys have great insight, share great information. We appreciate any of the information you guys send over, like
Hmm.
Xiaoxi. And one of the things I really appreciated in our discussion with Xiaoxi is he's spoken with a lot of the islands
Yeah.
firsthand, right? So he's not hearing someone else's story of them talking. He went directly to a lot of these places and had conversations with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so with that being said, there was something else I was going to bring up, but must not be that important because it skipped my mind. So let's start with our first topic for today. So maybe some of the guys that and gals that are listening, I came across Hopoi Tayone. Never heard of him before, but it looks like ABC News in um, Australia did a feature interview with him, and I thought that was
Okay.
interesting. That's what we'll walk through. Let's get one more comment here before we shift gears. T Style says he made me realize the complexity of the Tongan societal system and existing in the same time and space. I as well was under one after another dynasty timelines, which was false. Thanks. Yeah, that was one of the things he does give some good context in helping people understand, not to look with the Western perspective of how governance was done, right?
Mm.
And how he kind of talks about how the French seem to understand it a little bit better than the English. But it's kind of a really interesting discussion. So glad everyone enjoyed it. And part two, everyone's I think is gonna really enjoy that content as well.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna pull up Masi, and I wanted to bring up to you. Were you familiar with Hopoi Tayone before at all?
The last name Tayone is pretty. It gives me flashbacks of the was it Epi Tayone that used to play for the Ikaritlahi. So the
Mm,
Tayone family, I've heard the Tayone surname many times, but not I'm not too familiar with Hopoy Tayone in particular. I don't know if are you the same thing or
Same
did you just
thing.
come? Yeah,
Never came across any familiarity with him. But like that's the first thing that stuck out, right? Was that
yeah,
name? Was the
yeah.
name Tayone? I wonder. But what's really cool about him is he went in the 70s, and
Wow.
very early in the game.
Mm,
We spoke with our cousin Toko, who took the same path, went to
yep.
college to Japan,
College
played
scholarship. Yep.
professional rugby, and now does professional wrestling in Japan. So thought this would be a cool story to kind of listen into. So we'll go ahead and just kind of get started and then go from there.
Okay.
Do you know who this guy is?
Yes, I think he works for something with the international rugby Polynesians. He kind of does interviews and stuff. 'Cause I've seen some of his stuff. He kind of goes around the Polynesian island states and kind of do interviews of people who kind of had an impact or have done or have been part of the Polynesian rugby islands kind of thing.
Okay, in
Has
the
any-
community for the
Yeah,
players, mostly the players or like
players,
tournaments.
coaches, or anybody else. And I think he looks like he played for Tonga, from what I understand, in the
Okay.
past. Ikaritahi, but I pretty sure. I
Hmm.
forgot his name. But
10-4. Yeah, let's jump in and see he kind of just goes through his story of going from Tonga to Japan.
How old were you when you actually flew to Japan?
I was 21 because I finished high school and I was already start working for Tongan government.
Had you been on a plane before?
Before that, I flew to Fiji. Going to Japan, I was still nervous. All my relatives, all my family, they were worried. The only thing that they know about Japan is karate, samurai.
All the movies, eh?
That's how Tonga very small and didn't know about the outside.
What did you pack then? Like, because Japan, very cold. Did you have jumpers? Did you have all of the bits and pieces that you needed to travel to Japan? If you didn't have much knowledge
Good
on
question. When I packed, lucky it was spring in Japan. Narita airport was brand new. And one of my surprise thing, when you come to the entrance, it's automatically open,
the doors.
the doors, because Narita was very new, brand new. I had to write letters to my friend. Hey, here it's like open sesame, Haripapa. You 1 meter is such. Oh man, I knew. And I said one more thing. Here, the step is moving. That's the escalator. And they couldn't believe it. Are you telling lies? That's 1979. So when I went out,
There couldn't have been very many Tongans. I wonder if there were any Tongans in Japan at that time.
yeah, are we think what year are we thinking, Tua? What year?
1979.
1979. Yeah,
I
Yeah.
mean, like there were barely any Tongans in like the U.S. at the time.
yeah,
So
yeah.
Japan, like,
Big deal.
yeah,
Big deal.
and it's kind of cool. I mean, I can just imagine, like, when we grow up and someone tells us a story of something they saw and we're in Tonga, it's like, "Tuku holoi," it's like just unbelievable. So the doors open automatically, and like the
Mm.
escalator and stuff. Jeez,
Nice.
that's crazy.
my face when I hop out in the plane and to go out. When it was open, oh, the coldness came. I was wearing aloha and the luva, and the
Yeah.
like a skirt, very cold. So we went into them, and they said, "Oh, boy, it won't be long. It's only 1.5 hour drive." I never hop into a taxi in Tonga. Maybe it's only 5 minutes that I hop in. Oh, I was feeling vomit.
The car
Seasick.
ride was the longest car ride you've ever been in.
Motion
Yeah.
sickness.
In Tonga,
It's
so
small.
small. It's
So I have a funny story about being seasick in the Pacific. When I was in Samoa, and we were at was it Nawali'i? I think that was the name of. I can't remember the name of the resort. But
Yeah.
we were at the resort. It's next to Beulah, the Beulah Cave
Oh yeah,
in Samoa.
yeah.
Like that, the town, the resort wasn't too far from there, and we would always drive. And there was this one family that would sell coconuts on the side of the road that
Mhm.
Chelsea and I would always go. And when they were
Right.
first selling, I told him, "Hey, I'll come back in 2 days. If you guys can fill a basket full of
Coconut.
coconut, I'll come and buy all those coconuts from you," because I bought all the coconuts from them. So we went there like 2-3 times. Because we were in Samoa for like a week
Yeah.
and a half. Can't remember what it was. And so we were getting ready to go, and my older two girls made friends with a couple of the Samoan little kids in the village area.
Mhm.
So we told them, "Hey, you guys want to go for a car ride?"
Mhm.
It's like, "Oh yeah," because we had a van, those Toyota
Yeah.
vans.
Yeah.
Less than like 10 minutes into the drive, I don't know, because how we're used to the speed limit here in the
Yeah.
US. Maybe I was going too fast. Maybe they weren't as used to getting in the car or whatever. But like before we even got there, they're like, we're not feeling good. They were getting motion sickness.
Wow.
I don't, and so I don't know if it was a combination of like my speed and the driving and them not being as comfortable with it. But there's a couple. Any other comments, Masi? Before there's a couple comments here. Any feedback on
No,
what we've seen?
no, just pretty much what Hopoi Tayone has mentioned with the whole driving, because I know that's a popular topic when Tongans could come to America and they do the drive from LA to like Salt Lake City, which is like 12, 13 hour drives, and it's kind of a big deal for them compared to maybe an hour max to go from one end to the other end on the main island.
Oh man,
So
no, yeah,
but
it's true, because I mean, it's just it's a different perspective on time and
yeah.
travel. I mean, it's even changed for me living here in Texas, right? For me,
Hmm.
5-6 hour drive, I'm gonna drive it rather than fly.
Mm,
That's and I'm just kind of used to it. I mean, my kids now, when we drive, like driving from here to Utah, it's about 22 hours. We'll straight shot that, right?
mm,
We'll
mm.
straight shot that 22 hours. 12 of those hours, 10 to 12 of those hours is just in Texas.
Yeah. Yeah. And then what?
You
You're
know,
crossing through to New Mexico, then you get to Texas. I mean, Utah.
you go to New Mexico, if you take that route, right? And then you go through Arizona and then cut up north,
Yeah.
or if you or you can go further north and go from the Panhandle, New Mexico, Colorado, Utah.
Oh, okay.
So there's
Okay.
there's if you go up on the Panhandle, but
Okay.
but yeah, let's here's a couple. Looks like Polynesian Prince stopped by. Malo, he says, Malo
Hello, Polynesian
Kautama,
Prince.
welcome. Polynesian Prince has done an assessment of the interviewer and says if Artie Savea and Jonah Takalua shared a half brother. So that's who they're saying this guy is. That's the cross, Savea and Takalua cross.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Interesting, Polynesian Prince.
T Style also says Japanese are the Tongans of their area. I would agree with that.
Mm,
I would
mm.
agree with that. I mean, small island, right? In terms of Asia,
Yeah.
very influential. I mean, for goodness sake, they had parts of China, right,
Yeah.
under their rule. They had Korea. So
Yeah.
yeah, very advanced, heavy warrior
Yeah.
culture.
Japan was very unique, and I see Tongan style why you mentioned that, because I don't think Japan was ever invaded until the end of World War
World War
II. So
II.
there, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I see that point. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think the longest self-governing and active civilization and rulers, it was like Japan, Ethiopia, and Siam and Thailand,
Thailand.
right? And those were like the major ones. And then by the end of World War II, all of them
Fell.
had fell. And then Tonga is the only one, that
Till
has
this day.
survived through that. T Style says our kingdoms share the same timeline. Yes. And one of the interesting thing as well, T Style, and you said oldest monarchs. In one of the interviews, one of the episodes we did with our eldest brother Daniel Fale, he has an interesting perspective on Maui Kisi Kisi. And supposedly the thinking behind it is the reason why that specific Maui was called Maui Kisi Kisi was because he had a special hat or headdress that he wore that had like two bows on it coming together, kind of very representative of the Japanese headdresses that
Shogun,
look
kind of like
yes,
a shogun or somebody of high rank. Even
Yeah.
like the emperors, they wear
the
that,
emperor
right?
would have that, and it looked like a dragonfly to the Tongans and the Polynesians. And this Maui Kisi Kisi, who by all, if the oral history is correct, makes it to Japan, comes back with that headdress, and that's where he gets his name, right? Because that was something that specific Maui wore, that kind of separated him from all the other Mauis. And just for any new listeners, the Polynesianized podcast position is on Maui wasn't a demigod, it was a title, right? And it was held by multiple people over thousands of years. And so that's why some people think, oh, it can't be it has to be like a demigod or a myth made up person because no one would live that long. But the idea is whenever you take the title, you take the name. And so that's why the name endures for many generations. That catches up on the comments. Masi, anything else before we jump back to the video?
No, let's jump back to the video.
All right. Let's go to Savea and Takalua's brother with our
Hopoi
brother
Tayane.
here, Hopoi Tayone.
Maybe the longest I've been is maybe 5 minutes or 10 minutes. But
And when you saw the stairs moving, you saw the Alibaba, the doors, taxi cold. Like in your head, did you feel like were you scared of what? Oh man, should I have just stayed comfortable back in Tonga, or did it excite you that this is all new and happening?
when I first saw, I was afraid. What is this world?
Whole
you know,
new world.
I was wondering what happened because in Tonga it's only going to the beach. You don't see those other things. But I just thought, maybe these are the things that I am here to learn. So I have to hold back, not to be afraid, but to enjoy watching the new things coming up. For me, I still have other things to survive because of the language and things like that. But I remember when I was in high school in Tonga, we see the same exam with the
What school? What high school were you at?
Tonga High School.
Oh, you're at Tonga High. Yep.
So they say,
Malo Tonga High. We're
Ki
proud.
hele dei kaha.
I'm proud already. I'm proud already as a Tonga High School guy.
Nice.
We can't say that about some other people we've been talking about lately, but this guy, I'm proud. I'm proud
Good
of
stuff.
Hopoi Tayone here.
Okay.
saying in high school always, no English, no future. When I went to Japan, I remember that no Japanese language, I will never survive.
See, I want to bring this up because I've seen some comments online, and this is becoming, I'm starting to see it more often.
Yeah.
An attack on how Tonga survived its independence was, Tonga sold out, right? Tupou the first just sold out. He chickened out. He just, conceded to the Westerners, and that's why he converted to Christianity. blah blah blah. He was just a sellout. However, that's one way to analyze it, right? But another one is like Hopoi here. It is an understanding of the environment you're in, right, and where the battle is happening. And like he says here, he learned in Tonga High School, no English, no future, right? But he took that idea and he goes, well, I'm not in England, I'm in Japan,
Yeah.
but the concept applies. No Japanese, no
future.
future. Right? So I think, I think that's just kind of a cheap shot in my perspective. It's not a very well thought through argument to say, oh yeah, Tepo the First just conceded and he didn't fight. And I'm like, is that really the case? Or is it there was some more vision? There was a higher understanding of politics
Yeah.
and governance and what it means to be successful. I don't know. Any thoughts on that? But his comment there reminded me of a lot of the, kind of like the shade that's being thrown at Tonga and its ability to maintain independence.
No, I would just add on to what people with that perspective. It just to me, it's just they don't under. There was no further understanding, or they haven't had conversations to further understand the the process of what Dubo the First did. I think we touched on it in the beginning with our interview with Siashi Ilayu, talking about one of the things he did when they were raising money for the when he was a Wesleyan, right, church. They were gonna send it. The plan was some of his surroundings or people, his advisors were telling him he should send the money to Australia, but then Dubo the First and some people were like saying, "Why are we sending all the tithe if we're all believing in one God? Why do we have to
Mhm.
send our money to a different country?" But that's the reason why. See, these little changes, subtle changes, led to independent thinking. So obviously,
Yeah.
he was just thinking independently. That helps because it would have been a lot harder if, let's just say, if it was still not the Free Wesleyan Church like it is today. If it were still under the big organization of the Wesleyan Church, they would have probably be taken over a lot earlier and easier. But because that was one step to combine and also build up your economic independence and productivity within your own country, that gives you a lot more influence on the domestic issues in your country. But that's like little steps like that. That's kind of what I think of when you're saying further understanding to or a deeper understanding on these were the little steps that led to the the friendship treaty of
Mhm.
um, of Great Britain with Tonga, so that Tonga will still maintain its sovereignty, but let England represent or speak on behalf of Tonga because there was a treaty. They had that treaty to speak on Tonga's behalf that led to Tonga being independent. Wasn't colonized. So, but before we reached there, it was all of this other activities that Dubois the First kind of did especially with creating Tonga's own church, and Tonga is kind of known for its own church with its Free Wesleyan Church and also the Church of Tonga that kind of helped build Tonga's perspective on independence, not being, not looking for a partnership and relying on other countries to do your dealings on your behalf, especially in domestic issues. So those are the things. Those are the little
Yeah.
things that I think of.
I agree 100%. And it's that level of sensitivity, right?
Mm,
It's that, I mean, this is, when you train your reflexes for sports to sense when to react and how quickly to react.
mm,
I don't think you can under appreciate that little nuance is a indicator of how sophisticated the understanding of power and influence is, right?
mm,
Like
mhm.
like
Yeah,
you're saying, like 99% of the time, oh yeah, it's for God. Yeah, send it overseas.
yeah,
No, 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 no. When you're the center of the empire and you understand how power is accumulated and
yeah,
how certain decisions, even though they look small, are
hmm,
really, really impactful
yeah.
in losing power and independence, it's actually quite remarkable, those little things. And to just say, oh yeah, they just chickened out, it's like, well, how did it work out for the rest of you?
Yeah.
How did
Yeah.
how did running with your povai and fighting against the muskets work out for you? It didn't work out too well. You
Yeah.
know, so you can't just throw shade at it. I think it'd be a little wiser to try and observe, oh, what
Yeah.
happened there? You know,
Yeah.
just like Hopoi here, he's showing up. He says, yeah, man, it's a different environment. It's overwhelming, but you have to have the mindset of, well, number one, maybe this is what I'm supposed to learn. And then number
Mm,
two, how do I survive in this environment?
mm.
Right? Don't
Yeah.
get overwhelmed with the technology. Don't get overwhelmed with all that stuff. Yeah, it kind of throws you off, but then he quickly resets himself and says, okay, what do I got to do to survive? I got to learn the language. Number one, he says right off the bat, I needed to focus on
Yep.
other things.
Yep.
So 10-4.
Nice.
So first year, I said to the director of rugby of I won. I had to study Japanese, and that's how I was very fast in learning the Japanese, because all the rugby boys teach me every day. Yeah.
Now, when you talk about the little things like the barriers and the language challenges, we're going back to the 80s here. You wrote letters. Like, was that a form of, or the only form of staying connected to people back home?
Of course, we can do the telephone, but I didn't have money and things like to do telephone. But
As in
only
the payphone with the coins.
the only thing that I could do is to write a letter, which would
You can tell he's so disconnected from no technology.
Mhm.
The coins with the payphone, that's still ahead. That's
Yeah.
still ahead. Like in Tonga, I would never had any of those. You
Yeah.
know, but maybe in Japan, maybe he's talking about in Japan. But
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm
even
just
if he could, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just thinking, Dua, this is probably he probably left. He's probably dad's age because didn't dad leave around the 70s too when he first kind of went to America? So because
I
he
think
left
Dad
in the
may be a couple years older than him.
couple years.
Because
Okay.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
because Unga and them are like born 78, 79, and Dad came a few years before, and he was already 20,
Oh, okay.
21. So he's
Okay.
probably like maybe 4 or 5 years younger than Dad.
Okay. Okay. That's all.
Right.
It's kind of close to
And
that
and
era.
he's coming in Japan's golden times, because during this time Japan
Was booming.
booming. Yeah, I think it's the golden decade, I think, is the 80s to the 90s,
In
where
Japan.
Japan's economy just exploded. They had surpluses, you know, Sony and had come out with like the Walkman and stuff. Like, it was, if there was a place, I mean, even now Japan is like what, 5-10 years ahead
Yeah.
in technology and how they behave, but back then they were way ahead.
Mm. Also, with the whole manufacturing, I think that's when Toyota really started dominating the
Yeah.
car market. Yeah.
Not 100%. And that was because they took one of my guys that I love to follow, Edward Deming.
Okay.
So Edward, you know who Edward Deming is?
I've heard of him. I've heard of
Yeah,
him.
he's the guy, one of the gurus of like total quality management. He tried to take his style of management and quality to General Motors and stuff and say, hey, here's a new way to,
Mm.
you know, improve efficiency and quality. And they told him, oh, we don't care. We don't need that. We're number one in the world. So the Japanese came and took him to Japan, and they implemented
His
all
idea.
his stuff. And then that's how Japan really skyrocketed,
Toyota.
because Japan in like the 60s and early 70s, I think, they were considered like made in Japan was like the junk stuff, terrible quality. And so he really turned that around. The nation as a whole really just fully
Boom.
adopted
Economic boom.
that thing. Yeah. And then it just skyrocketed from there.
Okay.
So he was in a very exciting time in Japan, in my opinion.
take maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks before my family in Tonga receive it, and then they send back. It's 1 month or 2 months that I receive their reply. That kept me. It was really a bit of loneliness was there, but I always keep myself I have to survive.
Just on that as well. So writing the home address, how did you know where to write to in Tonga? Because there's no actual street address, is there?
In Tonga, as long as you have the name,
The village.
name of the town, the post will give it to the town officer or something.
Officer Colo.
Give this to. this is the old time.
Okay.
There's always a way. There's no delivery or anything. Sometimes the post office have to give it to the town officer to give it to the family.
So that's the
That's pretty
first
cool.
part of it. Yeah. Any additional comments? There's a part 2 to it, but I
Mhm.
wanted to see if you had any other thoughts.
No, I like his attitude when he
Yeah.
said, because I know his attitude was like he definitely felt some experience of loneliness. That's really tough on somebody being in a new place. But the mentality and his attitude was, I need to survive. He saw a greater purpose in that, and I think we can all take that example and apply it in our daily lives in trying something new or we think we're not capable of bigger and better things regarding job or just regarding any aspect of our lives. But if you do the hard yards, and you should be able to survive the tough times and think of and have the attitude that you're doing this for a bigger purpose. So, and that's what I got for when he said that. Loneliness, sending the letters because he won't get the letters back for like 2 months or so since he sent one, and then that time frame he experienced some loneliness, but his attitude was just, I need to survive. That's a positive attitude that we can all take.
Yeah. No, and I
Yeah.
think that's one thing to really keep in mind. Like, this is why it's important to listen to older people in your family and in your village and from your country, and just the overall history of where you come from. It could be, and we see this when we do the William Mariner account, stuff that happened like 200-300 years ago. We
Yeah.
can still see a lot of parallels
Yeah.
and stuff in our lives today. Same thing with listening to some of our older family members. Listen, man, you think you're lonely, you're the only one who feels lonely, you think you're the only one that had to face some hard times.
Mm.
You can learn a lot, but also take a lot of comfort that feeling lonely is natural. There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with feeling lonely, but you just have to have the right mindset, take one day
Yeah.
at a time, keep chipping away at it. And now that he's gone through his career, he is now, look, imagine all the Tongans that have gone to Japan since then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because guys like him, he performed well. Other rugby clubs are like, oh man, this guy performed well. He fit in. He's a good fit. He's a net positive to society. Let's go get more.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so it doesn't, your choices don't just affect you and your future, and not even just your immediate family. It affects all of your people, and then
Indirectly. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So there's a couple comments here. Don't want to get too far. Nuroa Pita, welcome. Malo, he says Malo,
Malo.
welcome.
Malo pizza.
Water Bear says he went and watched Moana 2. It was it was all right. It wasn't that great. I ended up seeing it. I didn't take my kids because it's a little too expensive yet. But on a date with my wife, we went and watched it, and we're like, kind of like, okay, it's okay. I think my kids will like it, but they'll have to wait till we get it on Amazon. Have you seen
I think,
Moana, Mashi?
yes. But it was okay, but the first one, I think Waterbears was right on that. First one is still better. I think regarding the music was better in the first one. But I did enjoy this. There were certain aspects that I thought was pretty cool in the Moana 2 that I think was pretty cool, that even surpassed many moments in Moana 1, especially when they're doing their Faikava stuff. That's pretty cool. They
Yeah.
have that and the importance of the kava. But like in overall, I think the first one is still better than the second one, kind of like Waterburst. But like there were certain parts like that kava thing, I thought out of all the in Moana 2 was
Yeah, because
pretty
it's
cool.
pretty specific and pretty,
Yes.
that's a direct element of the culture that everyone can associate with, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Hey, Polynesian Prince has a interesting perspective. Moana 2 is the result of how it looks when losers tell the story. And then he follows it up with Moana 2 is the result when the winners don't write their history.
Hey, that's a good one, Polynesian
Oh, that's pretty
Prince.
funny.
I don't know if you had it. Well, what do you have to comment on that? To what do you think of Polynesian Prince's
Hey,
comment?
it's Queen Salote said it, history is written by those who win, but I guess it depends on your definition of win. I actually we were having these comments on social media. I think I was having a conversation with someone on TikTok, and they were basically, we're happy, we're excited to see
Yeah.
stuff like Moana and seeing other Polynesians do really well. We take the position we are all the same people, the Polynesian. But this individual on TikTok was trying to present it as like, oh, you guys should be grateful that the Samoa are doing all this great stuff. And I said, no, I agree and I appreciate it. It's
Yep.
great. When The Rock does well, it provides more opportunity for not just Samoans, but for all Polynesians, right? We all benefit from it. And but one of the things I kind of was like my little jab after I said thank you, we graded is, but then I threw in there, that's one of the benefits of colonization.
Yeah.
Right. And whether the individual knew that was my jab. With every positive, there's a negative. With every negative, there's a positive. So the negative of colonization is you lose control, right? You're subjected. But the positive is, like American Samoa, that means you get early exposure to the United States, early exposure to football. You get a head start there. Tonga, you're as an independent, you gain your independence, but with that independence, there's certain advantages that you give away, which is, oh, I'm not a American colony, so I don't have access to America.
To resources,
right? Yes. New Zealand is governing over Western Samoa or whatever. You have more access to New Zealand. Yes. So there's certain positives and negatives. And I think that's what Polynesian Prince is saying is, the loser gets to tell the story. Well, that's because they had access. They lost their independence, but an advantage is you get access to Hollywood and the US and a lot of that stuff sooner than the rest of us, which, hey, it's good. It's good for us either way. What are your thoughts?
No, I agree with you, Tua. And just to like my thing with Polynesian Prince, it's to me, I always think it's good they have some kind of faikava. We can always say that's the way they do it in Ha'amoa, and that's that's fine. But we can always say because that's what they have. That's what more people are familiar with. Like what you said, too. We got more. There's a lot more Samoans in, like they have had a head start in the movies and stuff, and they just do it. And to me, we're gonna get there. But the good thing is when you have your independence, we can choose and know when's the perfect time to interject. Because like what you said, to when you're right, I think the issue we're having, right, we talked about it maybe 2 weeks ago, the tattooing, right? It's been mainstream. It's been mainstreamed and it's kind of been revitalized and everything. Now it's kind of like now there's a whole bickering of like, okay, you shouldn't do it this way. Okay, you're not someone enough to do it that way, or how do you know what that means? You know what I mean? It's gotta get to a point that it's good they displayed it in the Kaba thing, but who knows? Once that comes, maybe somebody's gonna have an idea that has the money, and they're gonna say instead of telling Gina Samoan to give money to advise them how it should be done, they're gonna do it their own way, and then who knows? That's gonna cause another controversy. You know what I mean? To us, so
yes,
those are the things that, like, to me, yes, when the Hamoas do well, we do well too, because that gives us an opportunity. But like at the same time, what's so unique about us and the best thing of being independent from the beginning is we we tend to learn what the others are doing first and what are the good and the bad, and we kind of take it, kind of thing. So what's the good and what's beneficial, and it's different. That's all I'll say on Polynesian Prince's comment there.
But that's a pretty good one, though. That was pretty funny.
Yeah,
that was a good one.
that was a good
Prince.
one, Polynesian Prince.
T Style says Inukiai Prince. Yeah, Marie.
Dear.
So you malo for the support there, Water Bears. Um, so it says here they talk about Ava ceremony and yet still don't know the roots and deep history behind the
Mm.
Ava ceremony. And see, that's my perspective, right?
Yeah.
You know, is it's good to get exposure, but you know, maybe we're a little biased. But the Furitaunga and the Taumafakava have a
Mm.
lot more intricacy to it.
Yes.
Hey, help me understand it looks like Polly Prince is saying the same thing. Ava ceremony is smoke and mirrors. Yeah, compared to the
Mm.
Taumafakava. 100% agreed
The
there.
sophistication. I think we talked about it. The
Yes.
sophistication is not close unless somebody does have it. Why they do it? But to me, it's not sophisticated. On like especially the proper of where people sit and the
Yeah.
certain names, and the reason why it is done that way because of the astronomical. You kind of went through it, Dua, the knowledge of with the stars because it represents the stars and the moon and the equator. So yeah, no, I mean that's where Tonga derives its kava thing, and we can always say this is probably the proper way of bestowing that title through the right because it all started from the
Yeah.
headquarters of Tonga Tapu of the Tui Tonga. So yeah, no, good point, good point.
Yeah, 100%. My question was, Masi, when they pour the kava, is that like I
Yeah,
think for the ancestors? Is that a pretty
that's
set thing for the Ha'amoa
yeah.
culture?
See, I don't know. That's something I'll ask one of the older Samoan gentlemen where that came from because I don't know. I'm not too sure when that started. If that's always been a thing. You know what I mean? So
Because
yeah, I'm not too sure. I'm not too
yeah,
sure with that.
because when I saw that, it made me think of Water Bear's cousins down Kaumiko.
Ikaw, Miko, yes,
I was
that's what
like,
I was
hey,
thinking. That's what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking. I was thinking because I know some of the people who love to drink and alcohol and some of the some
one
of
for
the
the
dead
homies.
homies. One for the dead homies, for a little bit. And I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to say the hot moss got it from them, but
Hey,
I don't know. I don't
hey,
know.
the Vaini Tacos has confirmed they adopted that pouring out from Los Angeles.
But yeah, I've always tried to try to understand that too, where that came about, because where that came from, but I don't know. But I hopefully one of our future episodes, future episodes, I probably have an answer that from some of my conversations I'll have with some of the older Samoan
Water
gentlemen.
Bears, I didn't know you was a consultant for Moana too. Water Bears. Hey, Water Bears. What's the official way to before you drink it? But yeah, I think that would be a great question
Yeah,
to ask, and maybe if we could get an answer on where that originates from, because I've never seen it before until the movie. But then I seen
yeah.
a lot of people online saying like, "Oh yeah, so glad," and how they poured it in the beginning. So I said, "Oh, and maybe it um
It
must
is a
be
thing.
like recognized." Yeah,
I've seen it. I've seen it. Most gentlemen, there's some that don't do it and will just drink it, but most of the hot more gentlemen that I've seen, or women too, when they before they drink, they always pour a little bit down. But I don't know where that came from.
not to get now. And hey, for all our Samoan brothers and sisters, we're not trying to be disrespectful. We're just trying to have some fun here. But another way to interpret it is if you're in a kalapu and the toa just gives you too much kava, that's one way. One way to get out of it. Eh?
Yeah.
It's like,
Mm.
hey guys, what am I gonna do? If the first guy is like, man, I'm not feeling good. It's like, I'll have poiloy. This is for my ancestors.
Kuwai got no.
What?
That's how good those ones who are saying they just have enough. They're just trying to stay there with the homies and stuff to try to finish the last kumete and stuff before they can hurry up and get
See?
home.
Water Bear
Yeah.
says, usually when I drink kava, I pour some out when it's too taufua, cuz.
Well, yeah. Well,
See?
that's the thing, right? When you go and fight kawa and stuff, sometimes people like they'll drink all of it and then just that little bit because you
The
get
little
some of that
gravy at the bottom.
gravy, gravy at the bottom. You kind of leave that there, and you kind of usually just kind of throw that outside. But yeah, I mean that's what I remember. You
I'm
usually do
starting
those
to
things.
think they specifically hired Water Bears as a consultant for this. I mean, he is our official PR guy, so
Yes, sir.
I can
a
see
bear.
why they'd have good taste if they hired him. Paulie Prince says, I appreciate your content. Kautama influenced a lot of my TikTok under Tui. Oh, I didn't know that was you, Paulie Prince. I've seen some of your content where I hope to continue to spread who we are then and who we are now. 100%. I appreciate
Malo
that.
Awe.
Great job with
Malo,
that
Polynesian Prince.
that account. I have seen that account, Paulie Prince on TikTok, and that's awesome. So interesting. So T Style says they pour it for God or the gods. They proclaim it first for God. Okay, 10-4. Now that's the serious answer. Now that we've all had our good laugh, it looks like T Style has the more official answer. The Holomulbe Water Bears.
The gods of the old, hey?
Yeah.
Or for the new gods. Eh?
Yeah. Oh yeah. If we talk on Allah Yabita Water Bears, is TikTok really gonna shut down? I don't know, man. Uncle Donald says he's gonna save it. We'll see what he can do.
I think he just said it's gonna be on hold until he gets into office. But I think it's not. We'll see how it goes, because I know. I mean, if it's a real national security threat, we'll see. I'm sure they can just solve that without destroying the whole organization or company. But I think it's just more of the pressures from like the other social media, the Instagrams and Facebook, who want to get rid of TikTok, because I know
TikTok's dominating.
Yeah. It's more of a power play kind of thing from the external forces.
Yep. I mean, it's no different than what Tupo the First and our ancestors did with the church and school.
Yeah.
And you know, it's like, hey, are we giving up too much power if we let them stay here? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how Uncle Donald handles that. Hey, Mo says, Happy New Year, Tonga kids. Malo Mo.
Oh boy.
Well, welcome to the live digital conversation. All right, let's come back to Savia and Takalua mix here.
Yeah.
Oh, I have it on mute.
Sam, what is it? Wux? That's the guy.
Is that his name?
So you've got your cap here.
Sam
Can we have
Wikes.
a look at your your test cap that you brought with you?
Still in the box.
How good is that?
This one.
So just with man, it's
exactly the same.
Still again amazing to see that even today when you get a test cap or a debut or something like that, like it's still the same style. You know? What else did you actually get with it?
This one is the this year I was in the best 15 national of the national team.
Yep.
It's number 8.
Yeah. Oh, so can I grab that for a sec? Just test my Japanese here. So that's
he must have played in Japan.
That's Japan.
As well.
Nihon. Best of 15.
Yeah. number 8.
Number 8. Hachiban.
See, oh, perfect.
Perfect. Yeah.
You still remember.
So, you know, playing for Japan, you know, being brought up in Tonga, did it feel weird representing another country at the time? I know you said like where you sweat, but did it feel weird that, you know, all your cultural roots, your family was back in Tonga?
It was nervous. I was thinking whether I can play for Japan. But I thought to myself, all these years I've been struggling. Rather than go back to Tonga, what I can do to this country, they have done a lot to me. In my heart, Tonga and Japan was the same. I feel when I am in this team, I want like the Tonga. I'll die for it. That's how I feel with Japan too. It's just my own country.
When you put on that jersey for the first time, singing the national anthem, again, you've got those emotions of feeling like, you know, I'm going to die for this country. What else was it like? Did you think back to, you know, the sacrifice, even like, did you think about your family? Did you think about everyone back in Tonga saying and thinking like, wow, this is happening for the first time ever?
For me, when I stood there, I just thought there's no point of returning. I have to move on.
Mm.
I have this opportunity, and I do understand. I just want to do my best to this country. That's how I thought on the time.
How did you feel when, I guess, some of the Japanese people externally didn't feel like you belonged in that jersey?
I know that because they didn't get used foreigner next to them. They were still trying to mix see me, but as time goes by, we get to understand each other. For example, I was called the strange foreigner. It's my nickname,
What was it?
strange foreigner.
So what does it? How would they say that in Japanese?
Henna gaijin.
Henagaijin.
You
Henagaijin.
understand?
Yeah.
I was called Henna gaijin.
Is that like kaijin, like in those Japan, like those movies with the kaijins that come out of the water?
Mhm.
Have you
I
seen
have
those
no
movies with
idea.
the giant robots? Okay.
No.
Sounds like kaijin, like monsters. And he's saying like strange foreigner. They basically was
When you
calling him a monster.
No, I was
That's
just
funny.
thinking when you say robots, I'm thinking of the Pacific Rim. You know those robots were
Yeah,
coming
that
from the
one.
ocean. That one?
Yeah,
Okay. I didn't know
those
they called.
monsters that come out, they're called kaijin.
Okay, I had no idea. Kind of like
Hmm.
Godzilla kind of thing, right?
Yes, similar like that. All right, all right.
Okay.
But it's not the prejudice thing. It's how they started to understand me because they always laugh when I make jokes to them. So even in the lineup, my sign play to jump in the lineup, we sit down and we use numbers. And the thrower said, forget about numbers to her boy. Just call strange foreigner. He jump. The opposition are foreigners. They don't know. So I was called, even the lineup,
Kaijin.
strange foreigner. Bang, I jump. But because of the language, we can break the barrier straight away. And they always, hey, come on, strange foreigner, let's go.
There we go. Marie.
Maria.
Any
Maria.
thoughts, Masi?
Um, I was just thinking of how much. Oh, see, I was just thinking of like it's crazy that what he did. Can we? Is he the first one? Like first kind of Tongan to represent Japan? Is there any
That's
info you
pretty
have
early.
on that?
I mean, I didn't even think Tongans were going there until like the 90s.
Yeah, and
And
this
he's
is
over
all the
there
way.
in 79. He may have been the first one to go to college, man. I
Yeah.
don't know. I can't think of
No,
any.
I'm just thinking. Well, to me, it just goes. It's to me, it's just the especially in league, the international players. They're so good to have more choices, right? Because he was in a difficult situation, and he chose because he was that's back in the days in the 70s. But I'm just thinking of how much union is still kind of very difficult for player movement. But I'm just thinking of rugby league, how it's just much better for choices now that hey, if you don't get selected for the Matematonga or you just didn't have the opportunity, now you can because without sacrificing financial, well, not huge financial loss for representing your heritage country. But I'm just thinking, man, if Tonga can keep up the momentum, if we're bringing numbers, I think we went over the numbers. We're the number one viewership
Yeah.
in international matches. How can we not attract big sponsorship deals that maybe when we do, we can pay our players who want to represent Tonga, Matema Tonga, can get not sacrifice a huge financial loss because the sacrifice was made before in the Taumalolo and Fifita time. So that's what I'm trying to say. He sacrificed. Hopefully, Union can make that change, but right now it's still difficult because he
Yeah.
played. I'm assuming he played a rugby union representing Japan, and he's made that sacrifice and his time hit. And some of the Tongan players have benefited. Making it easier to or a pathway, creating a pathway to develop their rugby skills and search for financial opportunities. But I'm just thinking. It's just me. I'm just when he was speaking, I'm just saying, man, rugby league, Matima Tonga, and what Taumalolo and Fifita has done, it's only gonna propel Tonga that maybe it won't be such a financial. It's just more opportunities, more options, which is better, and won't be a huge sacrifice loss for a lot of our people who want to represent Tonga. Because if we're pulling out numbers with the most viewership in international rugby league matches, how can you not have companies? They don't care if you're gonna be from whatever part of country. If you're bringing the eyeballs, they're gonna pay you, and you're gonna get paid. So that's all I was just thinking, Dua, when he especially talked about how where rugby is at now, and just the different mindset of how people have sacrificed to move how especially in rugby league it is today. Union, there's still quite a
Yeah.
few works that we need to work through that to make it more even. But that's just
Yeah,
me. I don't know if you had
no,
anything, Dua.
no, I wanted to go along what you're saying of like what the opportunity like guys like him now provide, right? Let's come back to this comment here. De Vita Tonga Tavi says there were Tongan sumo wrestlers in the 80s. So he was in that first wave. Maybe he came in 79 to play rugby and a couple other guys came to do
Yeah.
sumo, right?
Okay. Mhm.
And I know like what I think that was Tupo the fourth worked out where
Mm.
he wanted some Tongans to come from Tonga, go overseas to try and learn the sumo martial arts. I wanted to go off of that same idea you were mentioning. Look at now him as an early Polynesian breaking through that barrier where he's the strange foreigner, right? The
Yeah.
kaiju, whatever you want to call it. And it looks like there was some controversy of him making the team, right? Some people
Mhm.
like he's not really. And look at to now. I think this is I don't know. Hopefully, this is relatively accurate, but I just went to the Japanese website
Roster.
roster. So right off the bat, we have a Opeti Helu,
Mhm.
right? We have Tamefusa. I don't know if this is a Japanese name or not. The
Could be
last
a mix.
name,
Maybe it was a
yeah,
mix. Somebody lived there in Japan and had kids
yeah,
with a
that's what I'm
Japanese.
saying. It could be that, and I'm trying to think if there's any other right here.
Amanaki.
Uluiviti is this like a
Mm. Fijian.
Fijian? So we got a Wanga right there,
Mm.
another Fijian.
There's the
Looks like
Amanaki
a
Taumaki right there.
Oh yeah, I missed that. I just saw the Aki and I thought it was like a Japanese name.
Mm.
Then we have Isaiah Mapusua, it's probably a Samoan.
Mhm.
And then who knows? Maybe these Ben Gunter guys are also Polynesian, but there's a Tevita Tatafu, Faulua Makisi, right? Amato Fakatava. I mean, look at all these
Yeah.
Polynesian players.
Yeah. Not so lonely. Not so lonely when you're
Not
not the
so
only one.
lonely. See, another one here. This could be a Polynesian, is a Junta Hamano.
Mm.
And this could be a Fijian right here, Jonne.
Mm.
Man, look at this, man. Like half the team is Polynesian. Malo
Tuitama.
Tuitama. Yosaya Fifita.
Yep. That's a good bunch.
Yeah, that's a good group there. So, like, let's count. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
What, 12, 13?
Yeah. 11, 12. 12,
Mm.
13. 12, something right there, the quick count. All because of some early pioneers.
Yeah.
So really cool. It was really awesome. I thought that was, I was like, man, the Tongans were going there that early, which I mean, it's not
Yeah.
surprising, but at the same time, it's amazing,
Yeah.
right?
And I'm
They
just
have
thinking,
certain people do that.
if oh boy, Tayone, if he just felt like he just needed to quit, he couldn't handle it. It was just too much. Didn't put the effort to learn the culture, the language. I don't know if I'm just saying the trickle effect. Maybe they would say the people who actually own the rugby clubs or sponsoring it's
Yeah,
like
it didn't work out.
maybe it didn't work out, and we'll start maybe giving less scholarships unless it's a really really good athlete and coming from Tonga, but they will like put their money in scholarship somewhere else. So
Yeah.
I don't know. You know,
Yeah. I
those are
mean,
the
at the
real-
very least, would delay it maybe another decade or so, right?
Yeah.
Where it wouldn't be like, oh yeah, we won't. It didn't work out. Let's just slow down a bit. Maybe take another 5-10 years before they try it again. So at the very least, it would have slowed down the development a
Yeah.
decade. But
Yeah.
could be longer, right? Could be even longer than that. But now that we're having that discussion, I wanted to bring this up now, right? Because it is a little bit more. We thought about bringing it up later in the program, but I think this is now a relevant, and this is the title of this image is Two Men Who Changed Rugby Forever. So obviously we have Jonah Lomu, right? The biggest
Yep.
superstar of all time.
The only global
Changed, yeah,
star. Yeah.
global superstar, saved rugby union. Rugby union was kind of down in the dumps, right? He comes in the 95 World Cup, brings in, I
Makes it
guess,
exciting.
yeah, it was the excitement around Jonah Lomu and his performance that was it Rupert Murdoch, the guy who owned Fox?
Yep.
He
Invested money.
comes out, yeah,
Yeah.
that's when he signs rugby union into a multi-million-dollar deal that really just saved rugby union because rugby league was just trouncing union at the time. They were, with trying to steal the top talent like Opahingawe, the human
Yeah.
torpedo, trying to take them out. So he really changed rugby union. And then you have really Jason Taumalolo and Fifita, but primarily Taumalolo because Taumalolo was in his prime. Fifita was at the tail end,
Yes.
still up there, but the tail end of his prime. But Jason Taumalolo was at his peak, and look at what his decision has done for rugby league all over, not just Tonga Rugby League, but that allowed the young stars in other areas to kind of trickle in. So I thought this was kind of related to it. But yeah, any thoughts on that? I think
I'll just
pretty
I'll just
cool.
share you. Yeah, I'll just share with you what I view of these two gentlemen here, Jonah Lomu and Tambalolo, Jason Tambalolo. I just think of Jonah Lomu being the global superstar, elevating rugby as a whole, and also Tonga because he was Tongan. But then I think of Tambalolo just specifically for the Tongan community, the elevation it's had because he literally, for the rugby league side of Tongan, saying, you can, you're making your money in the NRL. You're gonna, you're only gonna lose a little bit because the international game is still relatively new for the
Mhm.
rugby league. It's not a big financial loss if you choose to represent your heritage country. So, and that's what he really just the burning Tongan pride of Malolo when he chose to represent Tonga. Tongans everywhere in the world were already having a lot of pride in being Tongan and representing their country, but it was more towards the end of their careers, right? And it
Yeah.
was kind of very difficult, and it was fine because we all
We were
understood.
grateful,
Hey,
right? Yeah,
we were
because it's still a
grateful, right?
sacrifice for them.
Yes, but when Taumalo, like you said, Tua, he was the top dog in rugby league, and he chose to represent Tonga, sacrificing that thing. And we knew he was still getting pretty good money, but in the NRL because that's where the more of the chunk. It's different than Union when you get to the international side, you represent a bigger country. That's where you make your
More
big
money.
money at.
Yeah.
But Taumalo doing that and just man, he just skyrocketed Tonga pride to another level that I don't.
The Red
It,
Sea, right?
the
That's
Red
the
Sea.
Red Sea came out of that.
Yeah. So that's what I think of these two gentlemen, Tua. I think of Jonah Lomu. He elevated Tonga as a whole, but not only that, I feel like it's like what you said. He saved rugby, like just by himself, and he was that global superstar. But just Taumalolo specifically for the Tongan community, exceeding their support. We're already supportive of Tonga and everything, but he just exceeded it to another level with his choice.
Yeah.
And that's how I think of these two gentlemen here too. But I don't know if you had anything
Yeah, just one
different
more
or
thing. No, I agree 100% with everything said. The one thing I would also add And this is one of the reasons why I got a little bit disenchanted with the All Blacks. It started a little bit with Jonah. Jonah could have left and made tens of millions of dollars in the NFL, but he chose to stay with, that was him being loyal and so forth. But I mean, the guy could have, it's been confirmed. The Cowboys offered him an NFL contract and he chose not to go with it. And it's just kind of a bummer to me because I do feel his loyalty kind of hurt him financially, right? If Jonah was just thinking about Jonah, he would have left. But I have my gut feeling, I don't feel like the All Blacks in New Zealand really appreciated that
What he did.
sacrifice that he made to not just go chase after the money, right? Kind of similar like Taumalolo's sacrifice. His sacrifice was to play for Tonga. Jonah Lomu's sacrifice was, well, I'm not just going to chase the money and go to the NFL. I'm going to stay with the All Blacks.
And I'm just thinking too, what Jonah Lomu, some of the things he even if he just attempted in some of his negotiations, just saying, hey, just as a leverage, but maybe his loyalty was that thing, and maybe it was just him as a person. But like to me, I always see, like, and a lot of Polynesians probably go through it. Loyalty is always two-way. That's the next level. If it's always one way, man, you just have to show a little threat of saying if you're not going to be better treated or compensated, the money you should be entitled to because what you're doing for the game. Like you said, he made the game viable again in the international stage. Just that whole thing. But to me, I think, and this is a good lesson for a lot of Polynesian young athletes pursuing their big contracts. Be careful who you have around your social circles. Less distraction. I'm just thinking Jonah Lomu, probably a lot of the social distractions he was going through was, having another wife here and then leaving and then manager mistreat, like just all of that probably didn't help him to kind of focus his leverage, what he could have
maximize the
his
opportunity.
potential. And this is a good lesson for, all the viewers that maybe have kids that are pursuing sports and or relatives that, hey, be careful and make good decisions and who in your social circles, because that helps you or inhibits your potential in your dreams. So that's what I'm just thinking, Tua, because I'm just thinking, because, we're thinking of it in retrospective of his past, but I'm just saying, man, maybe he was just, we
and
see
he
it
was
as
the
loyal.
first. He was the first one. So, I mean,
First.
he didn't have anyone that he could look to be like, oh, this is how I should maximize my opportunities and so forth. So it could have been just like you're saying, unfortunate, but it could have been one of the negatives of being the pioneer, right? When you're the first one to break it to that level, there's just, you don't have anyone to learn from their mistakes. You're the guy everybody's looking to see how we can be better.
Yeah.
Let's come back to the comments here real quick before we get too far. Hey, Mataafa, Happy New Year. Welcome. He brings up an interesting point. Jonah loved everywhere but Tonga. I will say there was a little bit of time, and I don't know if the rumors were true, that some people felt a little bit that Jonah kind of tried to separate himself a little too much from the Tongan community. I don't know if that has any truth to it or not. Maybe that was one of the reasons behind it, but
too much drinking the kiwi juice or something.
Yes, I don't know.
And not only that, maybe like I said, my man was. I don't think his social circle was good and strong. And
no, it wasn't. I mean, and he was.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy was a star from high school.
What, 18? Yeah, 17.
18. Yeah, I mean, 19. He's already on the All Blacks. Scoring five tries in the World Cup at 19.
Yeah.
It's hard to, I mean, Jonah's he's definitely an icon. Won't forget him. And, but yeah, I think some of his shortcomings was just the nature of being the first guy to break it through to that level.
But I'm just saying,
too,
what
go ahead.
Mataafa was sharing. He's not, there's quite a few of the Tongan community that kind of have the same feelings like Mataafa have regarding Lomu. So, yeah.
Here's a couple funny comments. Call that man Jason Taumosese with the Red Sea. Maria, Polly Prince.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
T Styles says here, Tamalolo filled our hearts with pride. And yeah, I mean, that it was just, I can't explain how that
Yeah.
just was like a wildfire, right? That thing just
Yeah.
blew up.
Yep.
Polynesian Prince says, surely we would have had a Hall of Fame title. And that, yeah, I mean, there's a good chance. I mean, that's what he was offered by the Cowboys was to play tight end. That was the
Yep.
contract, was for him to try out at tight end.
Well, and I was thinking too, just to add on, I don't know if I shared this, but my opinion, if he went to America, I'm sure the American doctors and just knowing the NFL, they would have figured out to fix his kidney disease that he was dealing with.
Yes, they would have caught
The way
it
New
much
Zealand,
sooner.
yeah, just
Yeah.
because of that time in New Zealand, even now that getting specialists to perform such crazy surgeries like that was probably not attainable in New Zealand, but in America they were already doing that. And I felt like if he got treatment and surgery much earlier, he would still probably be alive today if he took that contract to America. That's just my
That's an
opinion.
interesting point.
That's
That's
just
an
my
interesting point.
that's
Yeah.
that's my opinion on that.
They're much more thorough in checking all of that. Wada Bear says Jonah leaving All Blacks to play for Tonga is compared to leaving the Lakers to play for the Boo Boo Utah Jazz. Yeah, that's a fair comparison. That's pretty funny. But I don't know. The Jazz have gotten a little bit like, I don't know, like Utah lately has been getting like a little bit more of an upgrade in status, like with the MMA fights going on over there and like all the money that's pouring into. I think
National
if
hockey team there.
when Jonah Lomu was looking to make the move in the 90s, I would agree 100% with that Wada Bears. But Utah seems lately is kind of getting a little more hip. They're getting a lot more money and tech and stuff. Maybe that's why. So it gets interesting there. So T Style says Jonah should have taken the money. Malolo didn't need it that bad. That's a fair description. Oh yeah, with T Styles pushing back on the Wada Bears. I know I see my comment on the Jazz Nation.
That's Water Bears talking style.
Yes. What were you gonna say, Masi?
What I was gonna say. Hey, I lost my train of thought, but I had something to say about some. Oh no, I was just gonna say, didn't Rugby League also offer him a bigger contract that more than he was getting paid from Union in the Super Rugby, like
Wouldn't be surprised.
300,000,
Yeah.
like from the Bulldogs or something. So that NRL and the NFL offering more money than what he was getting. And that's on top. Jonah Lomu, I feel like made his money because of the sponsorship deals. His individual
That's where he
sponsorship.
made his money, was off the field.
But man, he was getting paid pennies when he was representing the All Blacks in the Super Rugby. But
they were benefiting so much from
him. Yes. Correct.
So.
Correct. And just that threat, that's what I'm telling you, just that little threat of leverage if Jonah knew, but like I said, Jonah was dealing a lot of things outside of his rugby, just solely on his rugby career.
Yes, 100%. So let's go on to what's next real quick is this interesting thing that came across my feed, King Haku. So we all know him, right, from WWE and so forth. But this was really interesting, and I'm going to pause it when it comes up to a specific person that makes this comment. Like, how you hear a story like, oh yeah, this guy was tough, and you hear it from an average Joe. But when you hear someone that for a fact is tough as nails and says someone else is tougher than nails, you got to stop right there and be like, what in the heck is going on here, right? So
yeah. And isn't King Haku? I was gonna say, isn't King Haku still have his two sons? Are they still wrestling even today?
That's Tangaloa and Tamatonga. Yeah, I think it's those two. So I think I know for sure Tamatonga. I'm not sure about Tangaloa, but I think both of them are. So let's play this. But when it gets to someone here, we'll pause and revisit something. Oh, I'm doing a good job here in leaving things mute.
one of the toughest, most dangerous street fighters of all time.
My uncle King Tonga, I mean, arguably one of the toughest men.
That he would literally kill every one of us in the blink of an eye, and there wouldn't be nothing we could do about it.
If UFC legend Don Fry says this about Tonga, then you know he's the real.
Okay, so that's the person I wanted to stop on, right? Don Fry. Like, we're gonna watch a highlight of Don Fry.
No, I think
Go ahead.
I think is he one of that guy that was fighting the Japanese that they were just standing?
That's
right
the
there
one
and
I'm gonna show.
Whoa,
That's what I'm
whoa,
gonna
whoa.
show. So that's what I'm gonna show here, Masi, because
Yes, this one.
Don Fry is kind of a little bit older. He's getting a little bit old, but he was like the big bad boy, and then this guy was like the big bad boy from Japan. So
is
let's
Don
just
Fry an
let's just
American
watch
guy?
this. Yeah,
Don
Don
Fry's
Fry's the American guy. Don Fry is a bad man, right?
Yeah.
Is a bad man, and that's what I'm getting to is when someone like Don Fry starts saying you're a bad man, you're a bad man. And so they're talking about King Haku.
deal.
Tonga, that is a scary human being.
When defending himself against drunken troublemakers, Tonga had a brutally devastating style of fighting, coupled with amazing strength. In self-defense, he's ripped people's ears off, he's bitten off noses, he's pulled eyes out and stamped on the eyes. And in one particular bar fight witnessed by Bobby Heenan, he put his two fingers into man's mouth and ripped the bottom teeth clean out of his mouth. Now, the Rock's partner is Wrestling Hall of Famer Rocky Johnson. And Rocky Johnson had this to say about Tonga.
Take 10 guys to beat him, he go through you like a Dos Absent sauce. He pulled his eye out, then he stomped on it.
To show you the level of respect that he has, when other wrestlers are asked who would win a no-rules fight, anything goes between Haku and the UFC powerhouse Brock Lesnar, every single person gives the same reply.
Meng versus Brock Lesnar. Meng. Are you kidding? I mean, Brock is tough, but Meng is crazy.
Lesnar versus about 33 seconds.
33 seconds.
DN.
One of the toughest.
I didn't know King Haku had that
in the money pit era.
Man.
Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy. Especially, I didn't know King Haku had that reputation, man. He must be a very bad, the baddest. That's the baddest man on the planet right there. Then
The baddest man on the planet. My favorite is in self-defense, he's ripped people's ears off. How do we say that that's self-defense when you're ripping people? I mean, I thought that was crazy. I mean, you have Don Fry like, oh man, Tonga, he's crazy, man. It's like, oh my, and then Brock Lesnar. That's Brock Lesnar is a massive human being. And they're saying, Haku would walk through him in 30 seconds.
Dang. I'm just thinking through like, is it because of the places he went to and what he was doing, King Haku? That's why he acted that way. But I'm just thinking with King Haku, if we reverse the roles, if King Haku went to Japan during that time, went to Japan like on a rugby stuff and maybe got into fights and stuff. Just who knows? Drinking stuff. And let's just say Tayone went to America and Tayone would have would Tayone, because I just feel like Tayone was more of the humble, just like, if anyone says anything bad, he's not gonna respond. King Haku's one of the one, dude, if you heard somebody maybe in Japan say that he was a strange foreigner and maybe in a demeaning way, with King Haku, just his personality,
Rip that ears off.
Rip that ear out, and then no Japanese. That word's gonna go through all of Japan not to mess with King Haku. But I'm just thinking through it. Is it the person's maybe, I don't know, just the way they are? Or I don't know.
I think it's a combination of the personality and also just the environment, right?
Okay.
I think if you put Hopoi there and he because you know how he had to make an analysis. The Japanese culture is very different. It's much more mellow. They emphasize, and then also when you're hanging out with the WWE guys, they're drinking, they're going crazy, they're fighting, they're
bars, clubs,
they're shooting up on roids. They're like taking drugs. Like it's a whole different like environment. If Hapoy was in there, maybe he wouldn't have been pulling people's eyeballs out and stomping on them, but he would have been knocking people out because he would have been like, oh Yahweh. You know, it was English, no future, no Japanese, no future. Maybe he was like, no ripping ears off, no future. You know, and T style here brought it up, and I was thinking the same thing. It's the Tui Halafatai switch, man. When it's go time, it's go time. And that's actually one of the things that a lot of people observe about Polynesians in general. When it's just hanging out and just having a good time, everything's great. Right? It's calm, it's peaceful. But when it's time to show down, Polynesians have a very responsive switch. You know, it's just interesting to me to kind of hear that, and just to, you know, this kind of goes back to just our people just have a massive influence. Polynesians, for such a small community, just have a huge impact on the world. To me, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just kind of my thoughts. I mean, that was one of the things. You have people that are tough people who are saying, no, man, this guy was really tough. And then, you know, to hear the Polynesian side of the story, and it's like, oh yeah, we bring some rugby flavor, we bring some rip ears off, eyeballs, stomp it. Like, I don't know. It's just kind of cool. I thought that was a cool story, and just to kind of see how much influence.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, for me personally, I didn't know. I knew King Hago was like a good wrestler, and he was in the WWE. I didn't know that he was the most feared wrestler or feared person, you know, in all of WWE. Not only that, even in the fighting game. That's crazy. I didn't know that. So what a
he was really good in the acting, fighting in the ring. But everybody knew outside of the ring, you know,
don't mess with him. He can fight. He can fight. He can fight for real. Not just when it's showtime.
And you know what? I was gonna bring up the boat, the ships being capsized, but let's do another one. Now that we've this is just kind of how the program's flowing. We're going to go into, let me see here. Did I not put it in the? I didn't put it into the thing here. Let me type it in.
Into our program.
What do they call them? Producers. That's we need to fire our producer. Didn't do the stuff right. So this one, I'm gonna bring it up, just kind of going in. It's Polynesian martial arts. Kind of interesting. Because this is kind of where the program's kind of flowing with how we're talking through here. Guys, a lot of activity in the comments. Love it, appreciate it. Happy New Year to everyone. Si'ipek Aiha from Fefe Holoto. G Thang says, long live the king. Appreciate all the comments, guys. It's great to see that activity. So nice. I'm going to bring up here.
When you say Polynesian martial arts, I'm just thinking like I'm thinking of the old games. I guess you know, some of the Polynesian knuckle. They would do like punching game,
boxing and stuff. Yeah,
boxing and stuff. Okay.
Yeah. So we're gonna talk through that. It also talks about some other wrestling. I didn't know there was a wrestling component to it. So this is really interesting. And then we might, you know, there were some thoughts that came to my mind when we're talking about with Xiaos Ilayu, with the Tufunga and specialization and so forth. But I thought this was kind of interesting. This person, let's say this is by the Shadow Parliament. Came across this. They put this video together like 5 years ago, but I thought it was pretty interesting. We'll run through it and then
react to it
and see if anything else pops up. But I thought they did a pretty cool job with this.
Polynesia is a distant and isolated part of the world, geographically the most distant, separated from all other landmasses. A little known fact is that the concepts and methods of fighting that originated from there were very unique, and due to the overall culture in the region, were brutal in their nature. In ancient times, the peoples of the South Pacific often had relations with one another in terms of kingdoms and even empires. Not all of these interactions were peaceful. Often they were cases of violence, and one tribe or island would conquer another tribe or island in said circumstances. If your island or islands were properly defended, then you can keep your life and independence. If your defenders were not skilled, then there were every chance you would die and your people or homelands would be enslaved by a neighboring island. In modern times, an ancient burial mound was discovered in the Tongan Islands in 1964. These burial mounds had the remains of a large amount of people within. Certain genetic DNA markers can be noted with people as such factors for increased risk of certain diseases or traits that can be inherited from one generation to the next. During these said tests, scientists were looking at the bones of individuals from the mound and noticed a particularly odd circumstance that repeated itself and was actually quite startling. Fingers and horn bones of these people were broken and the joints healed back differently. This was particularly odd as this was not exactly noticed in other regions of the South Pacific.
So you heard that, Masi? According to that study, when they looked at the hands and the arms, that they saw a lot of basically like broken and healing damaged hands, and they really haven't discovered a similar thing in other parts of Polynesia to date yet.
Yeah, when they were saying the burial mounds, where were they excavating or
They,
examining?
he doesn't mention it where,
Okay,
but he
gotcha.
does says in the 1960s they
Interesting.
did this. Yeah.
Interesting.
In the case of Tonga, when the Europeans first contacted the native peoples, they recounted stories that in ancient times they were extraordinarily skilled in terms of boxing. There have been recorded accounts that in the 1770s, when Captain James Cook and his third expedition sailed through that region while mapping and exploring that particular area of the South Pacific region, an excerpt from his diary mentioned, quote, "If unoccupied, Tongans entertain themselves with boxing and wrestling, women sometimes as well as men, boys, and girls. The Tongans staged boxing and wrestling matches, inviting sailors into the ring and promptly defeated them, except when they let the sailors win for diplomatic reasons."
I wonder if any ears and eyeballs and noses were ripped out.
Or your lower teeth was
Lower
ripped out.
teeth ripped out.
Owing again to the research done in the
King Haku was
mid-1960s,
born a bit
an
too late.
artist on the said
Mm.
voyage actually produced sketches of fights that they had witnessed upon journeying to the island of Ha'apai, and features two pairs of men in combat, one pair using wooden weapons, and another with their fists wrapped in a length of cord. Modern researchers have theorized that this might have been a wrap to protect the hands, something like a predecessor to modern hand wraps used in boxing and mixed martial arts fights. Recollections of the fight mention that at least 3,000 people were watching the fight and were present.
That was the thing that kind of surprised me, is 3,000 people.
Mm.
That's
In Ha'apai.
that's a small MMA event being held in Utah.
Ha'apai. Yeah, yeah.
You know, or like modern day where it's like some King of the Ring or whatever, some MMA promotion. I mean, this was something that was pretty common and entrenched in the culture.
I'm just thinking it, how often? It had to be pretty often, huh? For these
Yeah.
guys to have a common get together, you know? Or is it
Well-
just, and I'm just thinking, was it only when they had like visitors come and they'll do a game? But I'm just
Well,
thinking,
Yeah, from what Captain Cook's saying, it was like, oh, okay, let's put together an event.
Yeah.
Keep people entertained. If they're not working, then keep them entertained. What really, and I'll mention it right now, what really is interesting to me is the frequency, and how often it's happening. And then we talk about Xiaoxi Ilayu's comment of what his perspective from his experience, what made the Tongan Empire so influential was the Tufunga specialization, and that specialization gave certain advantages to the Tongan state to expand.
Hmm.
One would assume combat was a type of specialization, and that there were Tufungas or people who
Yeah.
focused on that.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking too. A lot of the other like kind of studies I kind of done on like when the Maoris were having their warfare here, they were farmers and also other things instead of just pure warriors. And I'm just thinking like these fighting stuff. I'm like, there's probably a Tufunga guy that specialized in picking out certain gentlemen or even women. Looks like that. Like, dude, these people are gonna be special gladiators. You would say, and that's gonna be their thing is to prepare for certain fights, and their skill is just solely focusing on developing their skill on how to fight better. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud because I didn't hear other because from what I hear, like maybe there were others who were like in other Polynesian states. Maybe they were special fighters and stuff. But I'm just thinking, man, maybe
Yeah.
only certain Tufungas. That's their whole thing was to train, maybe to have apprentices and stuff under its wing and kind of train them when it's time to have an event or a get together kind of thing. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud, but I don't know.
No, 100%. I mean, that would be a natural assumption. If you're having people specialize like Captain Cook witnesses, they put up 130-foot tall structure and put
Yeah.
the largest pig and hundreds, potentially thousands of pounds of weight of food on it within seconds, right? And then it's not just the boxing and it's not just the wood combat like you can see right here, but also apparently wrestling, grappling.
Yeah, grappling techniques. Yeah, yeah.
And then if you're having certain people like Maui Kisi going and seeing in Japan and hanging out there, I mean, that's where jujitsu comes from. I mean, it's far-fetched, but what I'm saying is these are well-traveled people who understand not only how to navigate, but also to defend themselves. When you're navigating and you're going to new places, that's high risk of some kind of confrontation could happen. So you have to be able to, know how to navigate, but you better know how to defend yourself. If you come across someone that you're not familiar with, you don't speak the same language, and there's a confrontation, you better know how to defend yourself.
I'm just thinking. I'm just looking at this tree. Looks like there's some people standing on the tree. I don't know if they're doing some work on it, or they're climbing up to see the what's going on. And it just took my mind to the guy in Nuku'alofa,
the coconut tree.
Teopaiva. He climbed up the coconut tree to watch a free game, because everything was gated. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. It's like that was just funny. I was just thinking of.
Yeah. So there's a couple comments here. Polly Prince says, looks like Teopaiva got nothing on what Captain Cook witnessed. Yeah, that's like you're saying, guys on the coconut tree, but 3,000 people. I mean, there's some international test matches like when Spain came over. I don't know if you had 3,000 people at Teopaiva.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Especially because we got whooped over there. But Mauhau says Tuvalu wrestling on YouTube is pretty close to what it might have looked like its videos from the 90s. Yeah. See, these are the things that look, like we mentioned earlier, there are certain pros and cons regardless of what happens in life, right? One of the cons of independence and adopting Christianity, a lot of ancient arts are lost, just like with tattoo, right? A lot of these ancient things are lost. But if I had to make a choice of independence and losing some of those things, I would choose independence. You can always try to restore what's lost, but maintaining your independence and being able to choose what parts of the culture you choose to maintain, I think I'd rather take that route. But these are some of the things. I mean, just the same thing as jujitsu, right? I don't know if you're familiar, Mazi, but jujitsu is Japanese. The Brazilians have it, but jujitsu is Japanese, and the samurai developed it because they have their armor. When they would fight and not have their katana swords, you couldn't just like hit people, right? Because they had the armor stuff on. So that's where jujitsu came from.
Okay.
With the submissions and so forth was because of that. But when they went to Western, become more westernized, they banished jujitsu practice. Judo became like the watered down version of jujitsu that was a little more acceptable. But some of the people, the Japanese masters of jujitsu, went to
Brazil.
And that's how jujitsu was saved, right? Because they weren't going to practice it anymore in Japan. It was outlawed. So the only way jujitsu was able to survive, it had to go to another country where it'd be more acceptable. And this is kind of like the same thing like Tuvalu, right? Tuvalu, we've lost it because we've kind of, went full speed into Christianity and to modernization. We moved past that. But luckily, we have places like Tuvalu who were able to hold on to it, just like other special cultural things. But yeah, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, just to add on, probably our tattooing too, right? Because they were already creating their own. The Europeans were coming, creating colonies and stuff, and Taufa how, in order the focus was on Tongan sovereignty, just outlawed tattooing. For his case, he was thinking that it wasn't gonna help Tonga's independence. That we need to focus more on, our our spiritual being, on giving all of Tonga to God. That meaning giving up our certain practices, that we can focus more on God and being a follower of God and Christ. And then what happens? Our close relatives in Ha'amoa probably held, certain families held the tattooing traditional way of tattooing, and they kind of revitalized it and kind of made it more prominent now. So just to add on, like what you were saying, Dua, with just certain emphasis on what was important. So like what you said, I wouldn't take anything away of what Tonga did in the before, because I'm enjoying the benefits, and many Tongans are enjoying the benefits of now. But we had to emphasize on what we're going to prioritize, our priority list. So that's all it was. And then somebody took that priority list, like that jiu-jitsu, martial arts, because it was banned in Japan, was practiced in Brazil. And look, I think in order to be UFC, if you're too injured or you've broken your arm or something, your next second line of defense is jiu-jitsu. So it's kind of hard to, you know what I mean? So, and just like tattooing, it's pretty cool to see that the tattooing come about alive. And it's good to have a little glimpse of the past.
Yeah,
some people value that, and I don't see anything wrong with that. So that's just me.
Not 100%. Couple comments here before we go back to the video. T Style says the Roman Colosseum. This is the Ouija Colosseum. Ouija-seum. Mo says, look at the sailors. The locals were busy with the fighting. The sailors were busy with the women. Oh, Yahweh. Mo. Mo says, the leaders were strategizing, how do we get the sailors? And that was, we won't get to it, but one of the topics we were going to look into is we have a list of a bunch of the European ships that have been found,
the names
sunk throughout Tonga. And those are the only ones we know the name of, right? Because of all this strategizing on how do we get the piece of metal and the stuff on the ships for us.
That'll be a fun one to go through, Dua. That'll be a fun one.
Yes. It says here, Mo, there's a lot of details. Yeah, 100%. A lot of detail here. There's still some people, either they're bringing snacks. Maybe they're selling this
snacks,
stuff. Wow.
Yep. And it looks like the kids are just kind of playing on the side there. So it's pretty cool sketch, man.
Yeah, it is pretty cool.
Testimony for a fighting style and most impressive strikes were to, quote, turn round on their heel just as they have struck their antagonist and gave them another very smart one with the other hand backwards. Women fought.
You know what that sounds like?
What?
That's like in the kickboxing and stuff, the reverse back fist.
Oh,
What he's describing, where they would you're standing and then you spin and the back
Spin.
fist. Yeah, that's what he's describing right there.
Okay.
Right. So, and that's what I'm saying. Like, there seems to be some level of sophistication to this. And remember, this is not as structured as it would have been 200 years ago, where you have tufungas that are specialized in these things. These are just whatever has kind of maintained itself over time without a dedicated specialist to it. So I thought this was kind of interesting, this video.
Just a quick question too. I'm just thinking, the participants, right? Let's just say there wasn't anyone from Tufunga. I'm just thinking, in order for people, like, what would you think would everything be started? They would just say, hey, there's going to be a entertainment or, fuhu or whatever, a fight or something. Do they just pick somebody, or they just maybe open invitation? And I'm just thinking it could have been open invitation, because I feel like if you're a person of low rank, or maybe somebody who's trying to make a name, this is the
opportunity.
Spot. This is the opportunity. So you're going to be more motivated to win, or to, whatever. I don't know. I'm just thinking if there was a certain structure how they will pick their guys, because I know, especially when we have like a different island, like I think it was in the Mariner series, that books that had people from Upolu come to Ha'apai, and then they will have a discussion,
a game
between them, but they will say which rules, either do it the Tongan way or do it the Ha'amoa way, and then that's going to be the set of rules and guidelines. But then they'll have both of those people kind of go at it together. But I'm just thinking, if it's just like more of a, let's just say, domestic in Ha'apai or in Vava'u, I don't know if there was a structure, but I don't know if you had any.
He is going to mention a little bit that people were just coming in and out. I don't know if they were pre-selected or not, but he does talk a little bit about this this kind of how the people are coming in and out. Let's see here.
Or with just as much tenacity and ferocity as men. Even children, such as boys and girls, would quote-unquote box very bitterly for short periods of time for matches. Boxers who lost a said match were observed to sit down with neutrality after a match, and were viewed as if they had never fought a match at all in terms of their facial or bodily expressions. A few of Captain Cook's sailors who decided to engage in a boxing match with the Tongans were, in the words of a quoted observer, worsted. There have been accounts of Samoans being versed within boxing as well, but there is no evidence that it was on the same level of brutality that the Tongans once regularly performed. More records described a style of wrestling on Tonga called Pi'i Talva'a, or alternately called Pangatua, which would now be considered a standing freestyle of wrestling. A said wrestler could grasp any part of the opponent's body, but would mostly attempt to grab onto an opponent by the waist. A wrestling match begins with a contestant trying to conveniently hold each other. Wrestlers held one another by the waist and try to raise an opponent and attempt to throw them onto the ground by their back.
What does that sound like? That sounds like sumo.
Yeah. Grabbing them by the waist and
throwing them.
Interesting.
Malo maui kisi malo mo ni petala noaya.
And what's the history of sumo? Is sumo one of those ancient ones that probably
the oldest martial arts on earth?
But who knows? Who knows with the whole traveling? And I'm a big believer of, especially Maui and whoever had the Maui titles, and the famous navigator Doi and stuff. I'm pretty sure they reached Japan many times, and who knows?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, you never know.
Yeah.
Being defeated, a loser stood up and accepted the defeat. Being injured, wrestlers just smiled and let others assist them.
I think that's kind of funny how the formality about it, of the whole thing. Like, if you lose, you sit down and you just act like nothing happened, and nobody was like, "Oh, you loser, you blah blah blah."
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
more of
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
like, nope, hey, we competed. Same thing with the wrestling. If you get injured, you sit down, you smile. It's the behavior, regardless of the outcome, is important. Apparently was
Yeah.
important to them, right? I mean, it's
Mm.
the same thing that William Mariner, I'm gonna tie it a little bit to an observation that William Mariner made, is spending all the time with the Tongans, and then on his way he stops in Fiji,
Mm.
and he would say the Fijians were much more ferocious in how they behaved,
Mm.
right? Like very like wild, right?
Uncivilized.
Well,
No
I mean,
structure.
if you want to go straight to that, okay.
Oh, I'm just saying, like, compare
Yeah.
what you because you're comparing, right? It's kind of like with stability with the Tongan Empire for thousands of years compared to like a little, let's just say, a regional, and then maybe not as socially inclined to develop a certain behavior, kind of like a Tongan. So that's,
Yes.
you know what I mean?
Well, see, and that's the thing is, and it's also like William Mariner is saying is the Fijians. He wouldn't say that the Fijians were more like courageous or anything than the Tongans. He'd say they were more ferocious, and they didn't behave like the Tongans would wake up every day, kau multiple times a day,
Yeah.
mirilolo, right?
Yeah.
Like getting up and making yourself presentable and pleasant, making yourself pleasant
Mm.
was important to them, just like the behavior it is in the wrestling. Like, and then on the other hand, he said the Fijians were just much more ferocious, right? Like they didn't do those things,
Mm.
and they actually leaned into making themselves look more ferocious. Mohe uri and all that other stuff. Who
Yeah.
knows, right? In
Yeah.
painting, but he just contrasts the difference between the approach to
Civilization,
yes,
your society, or
yeah,
what? Well, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So I thought that was kind of interesting in how he described the demeanor of the competitors
Yeah.
in this. So it wasn't like a frenzy attack, beat you for the sake of beating you. It was like, no,
Yes.
this was a quote unquote performance, and there was a level of demure that needed to be met.
And two, I was just thinking that if somebody, like, let's just say, missed like the majority of the fight and they just joined in seeing it, and at the end you probably wouldn't know who won and who lost because they both acted the same way, and
Yes.
that was the expectation of how Tongans in those days viewed, because right, it's different than Western. You know who the winner, everyone is, it's
Celebrating and
celebrating, and you're pushing for the one you were cheering for, and the one that you lost, you were like, you saw the an awe, or like sadness,
disappointment
disappointment.
and
But it seems like the audiences just enjoyed for the
the
participants to
competition.
join competition, and you didn't. If you missed the majority, you didn't see who won or lost. You wouldn't be able to tell the difference if you just joined in last minute. So no, interesting.
Yeah. Mauhau kind of makes an interesting point here, like Fakafisi. That's why when we say Fakafisi, it's not the most positive experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yes.
In modern times, within American professional wrestling
Oh, I
organizations,
didn't know that's the
wrestlers of full
modern
or partial
Samoan wrestling
Samoan
right there.
descent
He's the
have been
face.
known
He's
to
the
be
face.
very skilled in the art of grappling and throwing. It's owed to the Samoan styles and attitude towards wrestling. In modern times, Samoans have been viewed as stocky and large in terms of body size, but in ancient times they used the shape of their bodies to their advantage in terms of using their weight in body size or mass as a weapon against others. As a result of this, Samoans use their strength and wit to outsmart, outmaneuver, or even outweigh their opponents in a match or contest or event. When Tonga and Samoa had contact with European explorers, settlers, and missionaries, the once proud Tongan and Samoan fighting cultures sharply and quickly declined, and ultimately disappeared. Missionaries, in particular, did not approve of the brutal fighting styles that had once been so important to the Tongans and Samoans for vast generations. Records later show that upon being converted to Christianity, the Tongans and Samoans either abandoned the fighting arts that they had honed and developed through war and conflict, or created quote-unquote less brutal styles of fighting in an attempt to incorporate the aspects of foreign religion imposed by the colonials. It became so severe that the stories of Tongan and Samoan warriors became that of legend and myth, not exactly considered true, when in previous centuries they were considered fact and considered truth. What is worse is that there is little to no proof about the techniques or methods used to train the body, hone the mind, and adapt the soul to the life of ancient fighting. All that is left are records from early contact with the British and stories left behind by the Tongans and Samoans themselves to try and keep at least some aspect of their ancient fighting cultures intact, so future generations could remember their former greatness.
Maria,
Pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Any
Tua.
thoughts?
No, I've kind of just heard about the unique fighting styles, especially between Samoa and Tonga. That I probably heard the most about. But you know, I have no idea if there's certain people out there that maybe have certain oral history on regarding the techniques. It seems like a unique technique of that style that's that's its own Polynesian flavor, but I have no idea if there's somebody that still hold on to that it'd be pretty cool to revitalize that and bring it up to the scene and implement it in modern day boxing or mixed martial arts. But yeah, that's just my thoughts, but it's pretty cool to watch that video that you brought up. Learn a few new things here and there. So that's just my thoughts. I don't know if you have anything in particular, or maybe heard any unique Tongan or Samoan style or anything, Tua.
No, what I'm gonna do, and I appreciate was it Mao or whoever brought it up. Let's take a look at that Kiribati wrestling style, because that's probably the closest thing we got now to it, right?
Okay.
Maria.
Kiribati, eh?
Yeah. Is this a Kiribati song too? Hookah. Hey, he won? How did he win?
Who knows?
There must be some kind of rule that we're missing here.
Yeah.
Because I would have thought the taller guy won because he was through the other guy.
Through the other guy down.
So it's not all just size and power. There's obviously some skill in there.
Yeah.
What kind of song is this thing? Maria, so has kept his balance.
It looks like the green guy stayed in. Switched the other guy.
Interesting.
Mm.
So this is kind of just your typical like grappling, like
Yeah.
sumo / grappling, like wrestling. Hey, hey. Marie.
looks like they premeditated this one. They say, hey, let's just join in and do a little dance.
That was the WWE version.
That's the Polynesian WWE. Maria.
Very interesting.
Mm.
Here's a funny comment right here. Man, these guys would have scattered. Can pull up el mi peao? Water Bears says Fashita Eori Moni. Yeah, I can tell you really like that, Water Bears. I mean, that's kind of cool. I mean, that's kind of a cool concept, man. I mean, that I never would have thought that, Polynesian martial arts was something that it makes sense if we're thinking about military conquest. That's just normal. You would think that would be something that would happen, but I just never thought of it.
Yeah. Interesting.
So yeah, with that being said, we're hitting the 2-hour mark here. Masi, you want to close us out? Any closing thoughts for the episode?
Closing thoughts is 2025. Excited for this year. Grateful for some of the things that we're working on to kind of release. I know the 3-part series or Siasi Ilayu is coming up.
Yes.
We'll release part 2 when available. But yeah, I mean, I learned a lot just in today's episode, especially the origins of the Tonga and Ha'amoa's kind of wrestling styles. And hopefully, maybe there's some families that still hold it, but if it's if it's gone, it's just because kind of part of the dealings during especially the 1800s of trying to avoid, especially in Tonga's case, avoiding colonization, navigating is just kind of part of the process. But I'm a fan of history, and it's pretty cool just to look at get a little glimpse of the past, and I like that, especially with that video you brought up to. But appreciate the viewers. Everybody, thank you for your guys always viewing our content, and also just going further than that, sharing the content. And we keep asking you your continued support. And but looking forward, we're working on some few people that I think the viewers will appreciate in our next episodes coming forth. Still working through some of that, and hopefully we'll get that sorted out. And then just a 3-part series of Xiaoxi Ilayu coming up. But appreciate everyone. You guys follow. Thank you, Dua, for the scheduling this and just creating this platform. But appreciate it. But that's all for me.
Malo. Appreciate it, everyone. As always, stay curious, ask the questions, and until next time, peace.
See ya.